and I'm very happy with the previous lecture because the former lecturer said many things that I don't need anymore to explain. So thank you very much. There is the second, or let's say subtitle, an attempt to verify the model of an integral person by referring to the circumflex of personality meta traits and the circular model of the I motives. So as I'm a psychologist, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a theologist, I'd like to present the ground for my doctorate thesis in psychology as an empirical method. And I'd like to shed a light on the model of an integral human being described by Edith Stein. And then I would like to show the possibilities to measure it in a psychological, academical, empirical way. So let's go. In her philosophical writings, Edith Stein reveals a particular interest in what constitutes a human being. The question of the human person has accompanied her almost from the beginning of her academic career, choosing as her first subjects Germanic literature, history, and psychology. Unable to find satisfactory answers to her questions within what she called the soulless psychology of the time, she moved to Göttingen to study the intricacies of human interiority within phenomenology under the tutelage of Edmund Husserl. She dedicated her doctoral thesis on the question of empathy to the analysis of experience, which enables the perception of a specific part of reality, namely the experience of another subject. In turn, two dissertations meant to be her habilitation thesis, Psychological Causality and the Individual in the Community, examined the laws governing human inner life. It means the law of psychological causality and the law of motivation. Two works prepared as lectures for the German Institute of Educational Sciences in Münster, The Structure of the Human Person and What is the Human Being, are a kind of synthesis of her reflections on the human person. The theme of the person and humanity also recurs in her essays on women, where Stein emphasizes women's particular desire to become complete, integral human being. Quote, each human being is called naturally to this total humanity, and the desire for it lives in each one of us. We may consider that the drive for this, which is particularly strong in women, is well related to their particular destiny as companions and mothers. End of quote. In one of the essays, Stein describes how she understands this fullness of humanity. It is the whole person, quote, it is the whole person about whom we were speaking, that human being in whom God's image is developed most purely, in whom the gifts which the Creator has bestowed do not wither but bloom, and in whom the faculties are balanced in conformity to God's image and God's will, the will led by intellect, and the lower faculties bridled by intellect and will. It looks like an intriguing description of the internal structure of the human being. According to American Psychological Association, personality itself, understood psychologically, is the enduring configuration of characteristics and behavior that comprises an individual's unique adjustment to life, including major traits, interests, drives, values, self-concept, abilities, and emotional patterns, dynamic integration or totality shaped by many forces. So that's a psychological definition of personality. And I set myself the goal of investigating whether this vision of the integral person can be translated into the language of contemporary personality psychology, whether it can be expressed operationally, and whether it can serve as a useful model for interpreting human personality. So, analyzing the individual components contained in the quotation mentioned, I will repeat it. Human being in whom God's image is developed not purely, gifts which Creator has bestowed do not wither but bloom, and the faculties are balanced, the will led by intellect and the lower faculties bridled by the intellect and will, it is necessary to define, on the basis of Edith Steins' writings, what elements this model would consist of. Stein explains the phrase, a human being in whom the image of God retains the highest possible purity, in other place, in her work, What is a Human Being?, where she speaks of the creation of man in the image and likeness of God. So I will bring two quotations. We have already stated that a human being remains the image of God in a special sense because he has a spiritual existence, because he is capable of cognition and free will. End of quote. And another quote from What is Human Being? The thing that distinguishes humans' likeness to God from the likeness of other creatures to God is the commandment that was given to them and which only makes sense if humans are able to understand it and obey it. That is, when they are able to fulfill it consciously and freely. Cognition and free will must be proper to human being. In them, and thanks to them, he is like to God he is similar to God as no other earthly creature is. End of quote. This refers to cognition, and therefore reason, and will, this similarity to God. The expression gifts do not wither but bloom. In Edith Steins' writings, the concept of the gifts most closely corresponds to the concept of potencies, which I will examine a little later. And the faculties that are balanced in conformity to God's image and God's will, the will led by intellect and the lower faculties bridled by intellect and will, means a certain harmonious arrangement of internal dispositions, reason, free will, and lower faculties. They form a structure that reveals signs of certain hierarchy, lower faculties managed by the will, which in turn is guided by reason. So, to summarize our considerations, the preliminary model appears to us as a wholeness or a totality consisting of reason, will, and lower faculties, appropriately ordered, as well as potencies that blossom. The next step it is to examine whether these potencies coincide with any of the elements already mentioned and what exactly Stein means by lower faculties. Oh, sorry. So, in the structure of the human person, Stein points out that humans are commonly understood as a unity of body and soul. And when thinking about humans, they are not described solely in terms of current mental stimuli, but also in terms of certain permanent physical and mental characteristics. This shows that these current mental impulses do not occur randomly. The described permanence of mental characteristics shows a certain repetitiveness of occurrence. Since there is repetitiveness, there can be no question of randomness. The question arises as to the nature of repetitiveness. It is something provoked from outside or from inside. When talking about permanent mental properties, Stein mentions, for example, the senses, instincts, and emotionality, adding that current mental stimulation informs the recipient about this permanent property. At this point, Stein uses the terms in German Eigenschaften, Vermögen, Beschaffenheit, and Potenzen interchangeably. Elsewhere, in other place, also the structure of the human person, Stein mentions that in Latin terminology, the word potentiae is used interchangeably with the words vires, virtutes, facultates, which in German are translated as Anlagen, Kräfte, Vermögen, Fähigkeiten, Thank you. And in English as assets, strengths, abilities, skills, arguing that they refer to the same thing viewed from a different perspective. So, for example, assets, the assets are something that exists by nature. Abilities means the possibility of doing or experiencing something. Strengths means enabling an act as split, naturally conditioned readiness to implement specific content in a predetermined direction. So when we are thinking of a kind of operation definition of potency, we can think of an innate and available possibility to perform a given act in accordance with a pre-existing direction. Stein goes on to use the term ability, given as examples physical ability or talent and linguistic ability. And in other place, she mentions also musical abilities or musical talent. Returning to the previous chapter, Stein shows the relationship between potencies, acts, and habitus. Potencies that are repeatedly actualized shape habit. Hence, potencies would mean all human development possibilities, both physical and internal, psychological and spiritual. Physical potencies would mean the possibility of developing the body and all its structures in accordance with a predetermined design, giving a harmoniously shaped body of an individual of the species Homo sapiens. Mental or psychological potencies mean the possibility of experiencing and expressing various mental stimuli, like perception enabled by senses, accurate response to external stimuli provided by instincts, violent or calm experience of emotions revealing temperament. And spiritual potential, on the other hand, enables the performance of more complex functions, such as learning a foreign language, music, and so on. So the phrase, the gifts which the Creator has bestowed do not wither but bloom, does not refer to the structure of personality, but rather to its dynamic dimension. That is, a diverse totality that has a certain potential that can be developed. At the same time, Stein points out that man is a being limited to his organic condition, and therefore the power he has at his disposal, which is the vital power, is limited, and its destination for the development of a given potency automatically means the lack of development of another. So I would like to bring this realistic, even moving quotation. For this reason, a person can only, to a limited extent, be what he potentially is at any given moment, and cannot habitually develop all his potential. Many of their predispositions remain unrealized throughout his or her life. What about lower faculties? According to Edith Stein, lower faculties cannot be reduced solely to emotionality and mentality. In her distinction, lower faculties include everything that is not reason and will, encompassing the psychophysical dimension common to humans and other creatures. It means body and psyche, along with the laws governing them. These faculties involve psychic functions such as the perceptual functions, the formation of habits, emotional experiences, and primary evaluations. Stein explains that lower faculties operate under the laws of natural causality and psychic causality, starting from basic sense and vital feelings, which influence perception and the stream of consciousness. The psyche functions as an automatically regulated mechanism with a limited vital force used to perform various mental activities, including perception and habit formation. Habits reduce energy expenditure, enabling the direction of vital energy to other activities. Moreover, lower faculties include functions that can be which turn automatic and it can operate without conscious intent, but still allow for conscious volitional interference. This interference can be active, deliberate attention and management of vital force, passive, a kind of decision or statement that directs activity and becomes automated. Therefore, lower faculties incorporate a range of activities beyond emotionality, including perception, learning mechanism, and emotionality, all under the control of cognition and will. Thus, the lower faculties are a broader category that includes, but is not limited to, emotionality and mentality. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when considering the integral vision of the human person, and at the same time the possibility of expressing it in terms of empirical psychology, attention should be paid to a certain methodological aspect, namely the difference in meaning between the concept of person and personality. The need for a precise distinction is also related to understanding where Edith Steins' model of the integral person is leading us. Is it possible to study a person empirically? The origins of the term person can be traced back to the ancient Greece, where the term prosopon, also used to refer to masks in Greek theater, meant both the social role that a person played in society and the person himself. The Latin world adopted the term persona, with the first definition of a person given by Boetus. Persona est natura rationabilis individua substantia. And then by Thomas Aquinas as the eye of rational structure, nature. So this idea was continued in psychology by William Stern, the same person with whom Edith Stein studied psychology, the soulless psychology, defining that a person is, Stern says, that a person is an individual, substantial, and causal being. In this perspective, personality is understood by Thomas Aquinas as a personal way of being and acting. And then for John Locke, personality is self-awareness and the basis of identity of a person's existence in time. Schiller understood personality as a human ability to remain unchanged in the face of changes in the external world, while Hegel saw in human personality the self-determination of a person's individuality, what makes him unique. According to Polish philosopher and theologist Krompiec, a person is given while a personality is, I don't know what to say. A person is given and the personality is, should be developed, that we are supposed to develop. We have this vocation, we have this call to develop. So yes, I don't find the proper word in English, I'm sorry. But when I've seen this quotation, I thought, isn't it similar to the concept of image and similarity to God? Like the image of God should be this person, something that is given. And the similarity could be this personality that can be similar to the person itself. But okay, could it be the same dimension of man's likeness to the image of God that he deposited in him? So a person is something given. We do not create one, and we do not even know exactly how it is created. A person is a rational being, and personality is the way or the ways in which he or she acts in his relationship with the world and other people. According to other philosopher, Bartnik, personality is a way of expressing a person's existence, cognition, and self-awareness, a principle of external action. Jastrzębski points out that the person is indivisible, whereas personality, understood as a structure, could be divided and thus also studied and described by psychology. And this is probably the most accurate contribution to further reflection. An empirical approach to the human person is more interested in identifying universal laws that can be applied to every human being, and there is therefore interested in structure, elements, repeatability, and predictability. So let us return to APA personality definition, an enduring configuration of characteristics and behavior that comprises an individual's unique adjustment to life, including major traits, interests, drives, values, self-concept, abilities, and emotional patterns. So personality, on the other hand, is an individual's unique way of expressing oneself, how one interacts with reality and in interpersonal relationships. The aspiration of psychological research is to be able to predict behavior, and for further reflection, we will refer to two main dimensions of this psychological research. The structural, which says that human behavior is best explained by internal characteristics, and the motivational, the human behavior is best explained by motives. So now the brief lecture on psychology, because we have not that much psychologists here. In the case of structural research, I will only mention that the psychological tradition of personality research includes various perspectives. Structuralists viewing personality as a configuration of internal dispositions, it means traits. Situationists, personality is a system of habits whose operation is triggered by the situation. Psychoanalytic, which thinks that personality is the internal structure of a person built on biological unconscious drives. Humanistic perspective, which says personality is a way of fulfilling internal needs and desires. Socio-cognitive, which says that you cannot understand personality without also looking at the social forces involved, emphasizes the importance of conscious awareness, beliefs, expectations, and goals in shaping behavior, and other. However, a certain novelty in psychology is the personalistic perspective on personality. Personality as a way of fulfilling of motives of I, developed by Professor Gashul. For further analysis, I choose the structuralist perspective and the personalistic one. So the understanding of personality as a structure of traits is based on a long tradition of lexical research, beginning with Gordon Allport in 1933, and questionnaire research, beginning with Raymond Cattell in 1950. And both of them were analyzed using statistical tools. It is thanks to objective statistical tools and studies that were repeated over decades that the 5 most frequently identified distinct personality dimensions was defined. And it is commonly called the Big 5 personality traits, the acronym OCEAN. These are the main traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And this model is widely accepted. And it was the work of Paul Costa and Robert McCrae. The success of the theory, the tool that was constructed on it, its popularity and real value in predicting behavior, confirmed both clinically and statistically, led Paul Costa to formulate a hypothesis comparing this model to universal personality physics. It should be a kind of theory of everything, enabling the integration of various models of personality traits and temperament, motivations, emotions, social functioning, and perhaps also psychopathology within this very model of personality trait structure, this Big 5 model. However, in 1990s, researchers began to question the position of that these dimensions are, they started questioning whether these 5 factors are really separate or they correlate between one another. And further research revealed that the 5 recurring dimensions can actually be reduced to 2 main clusters. The first of these two factors is referred to differently, is described differently in different studies. It is called as virtue or morality or social property or social self-regulation. The second factor is consistently called as a dynamism.
Just a quick comment, Helena, we'll have 3 more minutes just so that you know.
3 more minutes, okay. So I'll just say that, okay, to resume, I would like to say that, well, Stein's integral person aligns with high alpha, beta, and delta in this perspective, because the alpha factor should be emotional stability, conscientiousness, agreeableness. Beta should be kind of plasticity, which is very, very similar to the capacity of developing one's gifts. And delta is referring to self-control. So it should be aligned with the activity of free will. Somebody who is well socially adjusted, somebody who is well controlling oneself. I mean, not necessarily controlling, but managing oneself and develop oneself should be the integral person in this perspective. And I'll try to resume it quickly. I just like to give a little touch on the personalist perspective. So he develops a personalistic concept of personality, linking motifs of the I don't like to use the ego term because I think it's a different meaning that the I. And he defines that there are some motives that move the person toward action. And these motives are very specific and they are proper just to the human being, not to the animals. These motives are autonomy, significance, competence, responsibility, privacy, rationality, identity, creativity, freedom, and they explain behavior activation, maintenance, direction, and extinction. What is important that in this perspective, the I is self-aware and self-experiencing with motifs shaped by individual experience. Higher fulfillment of these motifs corresponds to a more complete integral person, paralleling Stein's model where rationality relates to intellect, freedom to will, and competence to blossoming gifts. So here, rationality, freedom, and competence are some of the I motifs. So I wanted to show you some graphs. This is the graphical organization of motifs of I, showing the, for example, if a person is primarily motivated by the need to be competent, here, motive of competence and self-improvement, that person will develop an expansive self. It is the individuality axis, expansive versus defensive, okay? And thus saturate the attribute of individuality. However, if a person is motivated more by the need to protect oneself, the person will develop a defensive self, which saturates the attribute of individuality to a lesser extent. The model of an integral development, the model of an integral person, according to this perspective, would mean that the integral person is a person that developed or was motivated by these factors. So the principal motifs would be the responsibility, being important to others, rationality, searching for values and for meaning, competent, independent, and free. And these are the main attributes that are very similar to the properties of this integral person in Edith Stein. So, approaching to conclusion, I propose the empirical research comparing Edith Stein's integral person model with the circular model of personality meta traits, the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and the circular model of I motifs. And this approach aims to operationalize Stein's metaphysical vision within contemporary personality psychology. So Edith Steins' vision of the integral person is a profound synthesis of philosophical anthropology and psychology. It encompasses a hierarchical internal structure, reason guiding will, which controls the lower faculties, and highlights the dynamic, flourishing innate potencies. Distinguishing the given person from the dynamic personality, the model anticipates contemporary psychological frameworks, including trait, meta-theories, and motivational perspectives. The integration of these perspectives promise a rich, empirically testable model of human wholeness, bridging classical philosophy and modern science. For your attention.
Thank you so much.